A luxury yacht anchors in the bay, golden lights shimmering on mysterious water. Soft jazz fills the air alongside the clink of crystal glasses. Among sharp tuxedos and gowns, a single father stands in a simple linen shirt and worn-out shoes. Judgmental whispers erupt as elite guests eye him like an intruder. A wealthy man sneers, "What is he doing here? Did he take a wrong turn?" His daughter clings to his hand, confused by the crowd's coldness. They treat them like ghosts, never realizing he is the only secret reason this yacht is still afloat and safe tonight. The man's name is Nathan Brooks. At 45 years old, he carries the kind of stillness that only comes from surviving a storm. He isn't wearing a tuxedo tailored in Italy, nor does he have a luxury watch worth more than a suburban house strapped to his wrist. Instead, he wears a crisp white linen shirt, tucked into dark trousers, and a pair of clean canvas shoes. To the elite crowd gathered on the ocean Empress, he looks like a man who took a wrong turn at the pier. He looks like a mistake. Beside him is Olivia. She is 8 years old, wearing a simple sundress and holding her father's hand as if it were an anchor. Her eyes are wide, reflecting the glittering lights of the bay, but she feels the weight of the silence directed at them. She doesn't understand why the ladies in the sequined dresses turn their backs when they walk past. She doesn't understand why the men with cigars look through her father as if he were made of glass. Nathan isn't a gatecrasher. He isn't a waiter or a member of the crew. He received a formal invitation, hand-delivered to his modest apartment 3 weeks ago. His name is printed clearly on the gold-embossed guest list at the entrance. But Nathan didn't arrive with a PR team. He didn't arrive in a chauffeured limousine. He arrived in a 10-year-old sedan, parked far away from the Ferraris and Rolls-Royces, and walked to the dock with his daughter. He stands near the mahogany railing, away from the center of the party, watching the waves. He isn't here to network. He isn't here to pitch a startup or beg for a loan. He is here because he made a promise. While the other guests talk loudly about stock options, offshore accounts, and the latest fluctuations in the crypto market, Nathan focuses on Olivia. "Dad, are we supposed to be over there?" Olivia asks, pointing to the buffet where the crowd is thickest, where mounds of lobster and towers of champagne flutes glow under the chandeliers. Nathan smiles, kneeling down to her level. He brushes a stray hair from her face with a tenderness that feels out of place in this cold, metallic environment. "We're exactly where we need to be, sweetheart. Sometimes the best view is from the edge. You can see the whole picture from here. Out there, they only see each other's reflections. Here we see the ocean." The judgment is palpable. A group of young tech entrepreneurs clutching glasses of vintage champagne stand a few feet away. They are the new lions of the industry, loud and arrogant. They don't lower their voices. "Is he someone's driver?" one asks, gesturing toward Nathan. "Maybe he's the guy who fixes the engines," another replies with a smirk. They see the lack of a silk tie and they assume a lack of value. They see a single father and they assume a lack of ambition. To them, a man without a brand is a man who doesn't exist. Nathan hears them. His ears are sharp, a relic of a past life, where listening to the smallest detail meant the difference between success and catastrophe. He used to be the man who walked into rooms like this and made everyone go silent. But that was a lifetime ago, before the boardrooms felt like cages, and before he realized that a daughter's smile was worth more than $1 billion merger. He doesn't react. He doesn't puff out his chest or show his invitation. He simply reaches down and adjusts Olivia's cardigan, making sure she isn't catching a chill from the sea breeze. His priority is his daughter's comfort, not the ego of strangers. The social hierarchy on the boat is as rigid as the steel hull. People are grouped by the size of their portfolios. There are the old money families who look bored by everything, the new tech millionaires who are too loud, and the corporate climbers who are sweating through their shirts trying to find someone to impress. Nathan fits into none of these boxes. He is a gravitational anomaly. He is a man who has nothing to prove, which is the one thing the people on this yacht cannot understand. They live to be seen. He lives to be present. An older woman, draped in pearls that probably cost more than Nathan's apartment, stops near them. She smells of expensive jasmine and cold judgment. She doesn't look at Nathan. She looks at Olivia. "What a precious little girl," she says, her voice dripping with a forced, condescending kindness that feels like honey mixed with vinegar. "Is your father part of the entertainment for tonight, dear? Does he do magic tricks? Or perhaps he's here to help with the catering?" Nathan turns his head slightly. His eyes are calm, but there is a deep, ancient spark in them that makes the woman take a step back. It's the look of a predator who has decided to let the prey live. "I only do one trick," Nathan says softly. "I make the invisible visible. But tonight, I'm just a dad." Gana, the woman blinks, confused, then scoffs and moves toward the bar, muttering something about the deteriorating guest list. Nathan doesn't let the encounter bother him. He knows that these people, live in a world of mirrors, where they only see what they want to see. They see a man in a linen shirt, and they see a void. They don't see the architect of their current safety. As the music swells and the ocean Empress begins to drift further into the bay, Nathan takes a slow breath of salty air. He looks at his daughter and smiles. She is the only person on this ship whose opinion matters to him. The whispers continue, swirling like the smoke from expensive cigars, but Nathan remains unmoving. He is the calm before a very specific, very necessary storm. He knows that the anchor of this entire event isn't the one at the bottom of the bay. It's him. He is the only thing keeping this world of glass from shattering. The main event begins. The host of the evening, a billionaire industrialist named Marcus Sterling, steps onto the raised platform at the center of the deck. The crowd gathers around, forming a semicircle of power and privilege. Nathan and Olivia remain at the very edge, standing near the lifeboats. They are physically part of the circle, but socially miles away. The lights dim, focusing on Sterling, making the surrounding guests look like shadows in a play. Waiters weave through the crowd with trays of caviar and rare delicacies. They skip Nathan. They don't offer Olivia a glass of juice. It's as if the unimportant status has been broadcasted on a frequency only the staff can hear. Nathan doesn't mind for himself, but he sees Olivia's hand tighten around his. She is starting to feel like a trespasser in a palace, a small bird in a den of golden lions. "Daddy, why is everyone looking at us like we're in trouble?" she whispers, her voice small against the crashing of the waves. Nathan kneels so he is at eye level with her. He ignores the scoff of a woman nearby who thinks his behavior is unbecoming for such a formal setting. "They aren't looking at us, Olivia. They're looking at what they think we are. There's a big difference. Most people here are blind to anything that doesn't shine. We're here for a reason. Just hold on a little longer, okay? When the truth comes out, they'll be the ones feeling small." A man in a sharp gray suit, a mid-level executive named Julian, who is looking to prove his worth, decides to take action. Julian is the kind of man who measures his success by the people he can exclude. He has been watching Nathan for 20 minutes, his annoyance growing. To Julian, Nathan is a blemish on a perfect photograph. He walks over to Nathan, his expression one of polite hostility. He holds his glass of bourbon like a scepter. "Excuse me," Julian says, his voice loud enough to draw more eyes. "I think there might be a misunderstanding. This is a private event for the shareholders and key partners of Sterling Global. Are you sure you have the right invitation? The staff entrance is on the lower deck, and frankly, children aren't usually permitted at these high-level summits. It's a matter of professional atmosphere." The crowd goes quiet. This is the moment they've been waiting for. The removal of the blemish. They want to see the commoner put in his place. Nathan looks at Julian. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't look intimidated. He looks bored, as if Julian is a fly buzzing around a dinner table. He reaches into his pocket and produces the thick, cream-colored card. "Nathan Brooks," he says simply. "I was told my presence was requested. Personally." Julian snatches the card, squinting at it under the fairy lights. He looks for a forgery. He looks for a mistake. He looks for a reason to throw this man over the side. But the signature at the bottom is unmistakably that of Marcus Sterling himself, written in the bold gold ink only the CEO uses. Julian's face reddens, the heat rising from his collar. He hands the card back without an apology, his pride stung by the fact that this commoner has a higher clearance than he does. "Well," Julian mutters, turning back to his friends. I suppose anyone can get lucky these days. Probably a distant cousin or a former employee they felt sorry for. It's a pity invites don't come with a dress code. If I were Sterling, I'd be more careful about who I let breathe the same air as my investors. The whispers don't stop, they just change tone. Now Nathan is a charity case. He is the pity invite. The judgment is no longer about whether he belongs, but why. About why someone as powerful as Sterling would waste a spot on him. Olivia looks at the ground, her confidence shaken. She sees the other children on the boat, kids in miniature suits and designer dresses, and feels the gap between her world and theirs. Nathan remains a pillar of stone. He knows that in the world of high finance, information is the only true currency, and he is currently the wealthiest man on the boat. He just hasn't spent his coins yet. He watches Julian walk away, his mind already calculating the man's career trajectory. Downward. Julian is a man who values the wrapping more than the gift. People like that never survive the real storms. A younger woman, a journalist for a major financial magazine, approaches them. She is the only one who looks at Nathan with curiosity rather than contempt. She has seen enough important people to know that the truly powerful ones don't always wear the loudest clothes. Nathan Brooks? She asks, tapping her chin with a pen. The name sounds familiar. Were you with the IMF? Or maybe the Treasury? I feel like I've seen your signature on something very, very expensive. I'm a father, Nathan says, giving her a polite nod. That's the only department I'm currently heading, and it's the most difficult job I've ever had. She laughs, but her eyes stay sharp. You're the only person here who isn't trying to sell something. Everyone else is a walking billboard. That makes you either the most dangerous man on this boat or the most honest. I can't decide which. Sometimes they're the same thing, Nathan replies, his gaze drifting back to Marcus Sterling on the stage. As Marcus Sterling begins to tap the microphone, the tension on the deck reaches a boiling point. The air is thick with the smell of perfume and salt, but beneath it is the metallic tang of anxiety. Everyone here has something to lose. Stocks, reputations, fortunes. Nathan is the only one who has already found what matters. He looks at the dark water of the bay, then at the bright lights of the stage. The two worlds are about to collide, and the splash is going to be massive. If you believe that you should never judge a person's worth by their clothes, subscribe now to see the moment the truth is revealed. The real power is about to speak. The music stops. Marcus Sterling grips the microphone. He looks exhausted despite his expensive suit. He begins to speak about the company's history, about the narrow escapes and the triumphs. But then his voice takes on a more serious, almost reverent tone. Last year, Sterling says, his eyes scanning the crowd, this company was a week away from total collapse. We were facing a legal nightmare that would have sent us into bankruptcy and many of us to prison. We had a team of 300 lawyers, and not one of them saw the trap that was set for us. We were being hunted by people who wanted to strip mine our assets and leave 30,000 families without an income. A murmur of confusion runs through the elite. They remember the rumors of the black hole in the accounts, but they never knew how close they came to losing everything. They look at each other, wondering who the secret savior was. We were saved, Sterling continues, by a man who refused to take a fee, a man who worked through the night in a small apartment while his daughter slept in the next room. He found a single clause in a 3,000-page contract that exposed the fraud of our rivals. He didn't use a supercomputer or a firm of consultants. He used his mind, his integrity, and his refusal to let a bully win. He saved every person on this yacht. The crowd is breathless. They expect a name from Wall Street or a legendary corporate raider. They expect someone who looks like them. He asked for no fame. He asked for no spotlight. He only asked for one thing, that we leave him alone so he could be a father. But tonight, I couldn't let him stay hidden anymore. Sterling's eyes lock onto the shadows near the lifeboats. Nathan Brooks, please step forward. The silence on the deck is so heavy, it feels like the yacht is sinking. Every head turns. Julian, the executive in the gray suit, nearly chokes on his drink. The woman with the pearls looks like she's seen a ghost. Nathan doesn't move at first. He looks at Olivia. He gives her a wink, a secret signal that says, I told you so. Then he takes a single step forward into the light. He doesn't look like a hero. He looks like a dad. He looks like the man they spent the last 2 hours mocking. Sterling walks down from the platform himself, something he never does for anyone, and meets Nathan halfway. He shakes Nathan's hand with both of his. "Nathan," he says, his voice carrying without the need for the microphone. "Thank you for coming. I know you hate the noise, but these people needed to see the face of the man who keeps their world spinning." Nathan nods. He doesn't smile for the cameras that have suddenly appeared. He doesn't soak in the glory. He looks at the crowd, seeing the shame etched on their faces. He sees the power players, suddenly realizing that the man they ignored is the only reason they still have a seat at the table. He sees Julian trying to blend into the background, his face a mask of terror. He tells the story briefly. He wasn't a lawyer. He was a forensic auditor who retired because he wanted to see his daughter grow up. He has seen the legal consequences. The legal risks that everyone else missed because they were too busy looking at the profit margins. He spent 14 days deconstructing a web of shell companies and forged signatures. He didn't do it for a bonus. He did it because Sterling Global provides the pensions for his neighbors, and he couldn't stand to see them robbed. The elite are frozen. They are witnessing the ultimate freeze moment. The hierarchy of the yacht has been flipped upside down. The man in the canvas shoes is now the king of the deck. The journalist from earlier pushes her way through the crowd. "Mr. Brooks," she calls out, "how does it feel to be the man who saved the giants while being treated like a servant by them?" Nathan looks at her, then at the crowd. "A man's worth isn't determined by how people treat him," he says, his voice cutting through the night. "It's determined by how he treats people who can do nothing for him." Most of the people on this boat failed that test tonight, but luckily for them, I didn't. The applause starts small, but then it grows, fueled by a mixture of genuine admiration and desperate, guilty social climbing. People are cheering for a man they would have kicked off the boat 10 minutes ago. Nathan just stands there, holding Olivia's hand, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He has seen the true face of the elite, and it hasn't changed his mind about his retirement. The atmosphere of the party changes instantly. It's no longer a cold, judgmental gathering. It's a desperate scramble for redemption. The people who turned their backs now try to push their way to the front. They want to apologize. They want to shake his hand. They want to be seen with the ghost of Sterling Global. One by one, the billionaires approach. "I'm so sorry, Nathan. I didn't recognize you," says one. "We must have lunch," says another. Nathan handles it with a quiet, devastating politeness. He nods. He listens. But he doesn't accept any invitations. He doesn't show anger. Anger requires effort, and Nathan didn't think these people are worth the energy. Julian, the executive who questioned him, is forced forward by his boss. His face is the color of a ripe tomato. "Mr. Brooks," he stammers, I hope you can overlook my earlier zeal. I was just concerned for the security of the—" "You were concerned for your own status, Julian," Nathan interrupts, not unkindly. "Security is about knowing who belongs. You didn't even know who you were tonight. You were just a suit with a bourbon. Don't worry about me. Worry about the next person you meet who doesn't have an invitation from Marcus Sterling. They might be even more important than I am." Olivia is the one who is most surprised. She sees her father being treated like a giant. She sees the ladies who ignored her now offering her chocolates and asking about her school. She looks at her father, confused by the sudden change in the wind. She realizes that her dad is more than just the man who makes pancakes. He is a protector. Sterling invites Nathan to speak to the crowd. He hands him the microphone again. Nathan holds it for a second, looking out at the glittering lights of the bay. He doesn't give a speech about finance. He doesn't talk about the law. "I'm here because of a promise," Nathan says, his voice calm and clear. "I promised my late wife that I would live a life of value, not a life of noise. I promised my daughter that being a good person is more important than being a wealthy one." He looks at the executives in their $5,000 suits. Value isn't something you wear. It's not something you display on a yacht. It's what you do when no one is watching. Most of you spent tonight watching for someone important to talk to. You missed the most important thing, the people right in front of you. You looked at my daughter and saw a distraction, I looked at her and saw the future. I hope you learn to look closer. He hands the microphone back to a stunned Sterling. The party doesn't go back to the way it was. The music stays low. The laughter is quieter. The guests are actually talking to each other now, instead of just performing. Nathan has stripped away the pretension of the evening, leaving them with the uncomfortable truth of their own shallowness. As Nathan walks toward the buffet, the crowd parts like the Red Sea. He picks up a simple plate of fruit for Olivia. People try to strike up conversations, but he gives them nothing more than a polite nod. He isn't here to be their new best friend. He is here to finish the job of being a father. He watches as the ocean Empress begins its turn back toward the harbor. The night is ending, and so is his time in their world. The party is still in full swing, but Nathan has had enough. He has fulfilled his obligation to Sterling. He has shown Olivia that truth always finds its way to the surface. He doesn't wait for the grand finale or the fireworks display. He doesn't stay for the 5-course dinner. He and Olivia walk toward the gangway. Sterling meets them there, offering a private boat to take them back to the shore. Nathan declines. "The walk will do us good," he says with a smile, and Olivia wants to see the fish near the pier. They descend the steps to the pier, leaving the ocean Empress behind. Behind them, the yacht is a glowing island of luxury, but to Nathan, it's just a boat. He feels the weight of Olivia's hand in his, and he knows he is exactly where he needs to be. The lights of the city are bright, but they don't compare to the look of pride in his daughter's eyes. "Dad," Olivia asks as they walk toward their old sedan, "why didn't you tell them you were famous?" "I'm not famous, Olivia. I'm just your dad, and that's the only title I ever want to keep. Fame is for people who don't have enough at home. I have everything I need right here." As they drive away, Nathan looks in the rearview mirror. The yacht is getting smaller. He knows that by tomorrow the stories will be everywhere. The single dad hero will be the talk of the town. But he won't be there to hear it. He'll be at the kitchen table, making pancakes for Olivia, getting ready for the school run. He'll be fixing a leaky faucet or helping with homework. He didn't need the yacht. He didn't need the tuxedo. He proved that the most important man in the room is often the one standing quietly in the corner, holding his daughter's hand. He proved that you don't need a crown to be a king. You just need to know what you're willing to fight for. The next morning, a courier arrives at Nathan's apartment. It's a box from Marcus Sterling. Inside is a simple handcrafted wooden boat for Olivia and a note for Nathan. It doesn't offer money or a job. It just says, "Thank you for reminding me why I started this company in the first place." Nathan puts the note on the fridge next to Olivia's drawings. He goes back to his coffee. Outside, the world is loud and judgmental, but inside it is quiet and true. He is just a dad, and in the end, that was more than enough. If you believe that true character is revealed in the dark, not under the spotlight, subscribe for more stories of hidden heroes. Leave a comment. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked? Tell us your story.